Moving on, let's talk about how a person can end up with low cysteine in the first place. So one would be the chronic use of the pain medicine acetaminophen. This is going to deplete glutathione, which is going to tax cysteine, because again, cysteine being a key ingredient for the production of that very, very key liver detoxification agent. So if you have aches and pains and you're chronically popping, not Advil, but Tylenol or other acetaminophen type medications, you might want to consider supplementing as well with N-acetylcysteine. If you eat a low protein diet, we see this frequently in people, especially in the elderly. They've been told, protein's been so demonized in our culture, and so many people have been told that protein is the bane of illness and causes heart disease and cancer and everything else. But low protein diets are actually very dangerous. And we know this from a number of the studies done in third world countries where low protein is the standard. It's very, very common for low protein diets. And these individuals are rife with infectious disease problems and growth problems and delayed growth and immune system problems. But we know low protein diets, you need, largely you need protein. This is where cysteine comes from. There are animal sources, rather plant-based sources of cysteine, and we can talk about some of those, but low protein is really going to crush your ability to get enough. And then high sugar diets. As I mentioned earlier, we said that N-acetylcysteine had an effect on insulin's effectiveness, and high amounts of sugar are going to tax the cysteine status. And that's what, again, we want to try to avoid that. Additionally, high sugar diets typically are low protein diets. They're also typically low nutritionally dense diets. So they're high calorie diets without very many nutrients. We know gluten consumption, and so in this regard, I see this all the time. NAC, not so much NAC, but cysteine, because we measure cysteine in everyone. It's one of the more common deficiencies that we'll see in people who are gluten sensitive, but the malabsorption in the GI tract, right? So people have damage and inflammation in their GI tract that leads to a malabsorption conundrum, and that can lead to reduced ability or capacity to actually get access to the cysteine from the food a person's eating. So malnutrition from gluten consumption in people with gluten issues. And then unhealthy lifestyle choices as a whole. What is that? That's a lot of alcohol consumption, because that's one of the other things. Remember, alcohol is processed by the liver just like acetaminophen. We see this also in people that have polypharmacy. So maybe you've gone to your doctor, maybe you have 4 or 5 doctors or specialists, and one doctor's giving you 1 or 2 medications. Maybe you're a cardiologist, has you on a blood pressure medicine, and has you on a cholesterol medicine, and has you on a blood sugar medicine, and then your skin doctor maybe has you on a topical steroid type of cream, and then maybe you also have like an endocrinologist and you're on a thyroid medicine. Well, all that adds up, right? And remember, where most drugs are metabolized, it happens in the liver. And what does the liver need to metabolize those drugs? It needs cysteine. Why? Because it's again, glutathione is what we're trying to get to. And if you have a proclivity toward taking a high amount of medicines, drinking alcohol on a relatively regular basis, right, with many of these other unhealthy choices, then you're going to be dramatically depleting this over time, and that's going to predispose you to all the things that we've been talking about. So if you're doing these things, if this is you might consider looking at having your antioxidant levels, specifically your cysteine levels, measured, and consider supplementation. Okay, let's talk about food sources, some of the best food sources for cysteine in the diet. And you'll notice that the vast majority of them are meats. And that's not to say that everything is meat, but because you get some from broccoli, you can get some from almonds and split peas. So if you're on a plant-based diet, you do have some options, and those are good ones. There's actually in sunflower seeds as well. We just didn't put it on our diagram here, but sunflower seeds can also provide a good source of cysteine. But everything else, and the highest levels actually don't come from those plant-based sources, really. The highest levels come from meats. And so you can see here, I pulled this from the literature for you. You can see here lamb and chicken and pork and beef, You know, you look at these are milligram amounts per serving. You can see the serving sizes over here. Generally, these are 3 ounce or so servings, but, 400, anywhere from meat is anywhere from, upper 300s to 400s milligrams per 3 ounce serving. And then you get down here and you look at, almonds, an ounce of almonds, 133. So not quite as robust. A cup of split peas, 249. Now, if you do eat soy is actually quite high in cysteine. And so I'm not opposed to somebody eating soy per se, but my experience clinically in people that eat a lot of soy, soy is very rich in phytates and other plant-based chemicals that can hinder digestion. And so even though it has a lot of cysteine in it, soy can be very detrimental to the GI tract, creating a lot of malabsorption problems for many folks, especially those of you that have a gluten issue. So I would just caution you about soy. And if you are on a plant-based diet and you are using soy, I would really just caution you to avoid any kind of soy that isn't 100% organic, because soy is in the U.S. is probably the most sprayed crop. I mean, it's double doused with glyphosate, and so you would want to avoid getting exposure to that, because that can wreck your GI tract and disrupt your microbiome in a big way. So again, meat's going to be a better option. And again, the rules on meat, and some of you maybe watching your plant-based diets will get mad at me for talking and promoting more of the meat, but when I say meat, I mean grass-fed, free-range, organic, wild-caught. I don't mean the traditional tract farms where they're mass-producing meat and giving these animals all kinds of genetically modified grains and confining them in pens and just, treating them poorly. That's not the meat I'm talking about. I'm talking about high-quality meat. So high-quality meat's your best source of cysteine in the diet. You can get some of it through some vegetables, and if you, of course, if you do eat soy, eat it organically.